Hello, this is Stefan again from schristoph.online. Today we'll talk about my latest blog post. Every catalog wants to be an MCP server. AWS wrapped its open data registry over 1100 datasets in an MCP server. It is a small launch with a big pattern. MCP is becoming the discovery layer for AI, and every catalog is next. My whole working setup is a constellation of MCP servers. When I want calendar context, customer data, or a Slack thread, an assistant reaches through the right MCP server and brings it back into one conversation. So when AWS launched an MCP server for the registry of open data, I recognized it immediately. Not as a new product, but as the same pattern escaping into a new place, a public data catalog. Here is what shipped, verified against the announcement. The registry hosts over 1100 datasets from more than 400 organizations. The data was always open, the problem was never access. It was discovery. The MCP server collapses that into a conversation with three verbs: discover, explore, and evaluate. AWS didn't build a chatbot, it wrapped the catalog in a protocol so any assistant can discover it. That is the pattern worth naming. Wrap the catalog, not the client. For a decade, the integration story was the opposite. Each catalog built its own search, and every consumer had to come to your interface. MCP inverts that. The catalog implements one server, every client speaks the same protocol, and discovery composes across sources in a single conversation. You might ask, why not just add an AI search button to the catalog website? Because that is the client-side approach that makes every consumer come to your interface. And forces a separate integration for every catalog. Wrapping each catalog in one protocol is what lets an assistant discover an internal data catalog, a documentation site, or a service registry the same way. Enough theory, the fastest way to feel the shift is to point it at a real catalog. You add the server with a one-line install, then ask the kind of question a curious human actually asks, with no bucket names. It comes back with NOAA's Global Climate Network, public domain, with records more than 175 years old, and drops a sample of the column straight into the chat. Here's the part that makes the point. The old way, you had to write a small script and first know a pile of facts: the bucket name, the region, and the file layout. Every comment in that snippet is a fact you had to acquire before the first useful line. None of it is hard, all of it is friction. Wrapping the catalog in MCP moves that archaeology into the assistant. Where would I stay skeptical? First, a discovery layer is only as good as its metadata, points is at stale, thin entries, and the assistant will confidently surface junk. And is this just search with extra steps? The difference is the evaluate verb, previewing the bucket and sampling a file. Plain search relocates the manual fit checking. Discovery plus evaluation removes it. That is the underrated part. But exposing an internal catalog to any assistant sounds like a governance nightmare. That is a real risk. Making everything discoverable through one protocol raises the same question. Internal search always did: who is allowed to find what? The MCP server must enforce the same authorization as the underlying store. The protocol standardizes access. It does not standardize good stewardship. So if you're running this on AWS and you have open data or research workflows, the concrete win is immediate. Install it, ask a research question, and skip the catalog spelunking. But the more useful takeaway is the template. If you own an internal catalog, the open source registry server is a small readable reference for wrapping it in MCP. So your teams discover it through the assistant they already use. This is the launch I verified against the open source registry MCP server with its discover, explore, and evaluate tools. The companion code sample in the post was run against the live public bucket. Its public code repo is a later published step. So I name it rather than open it here. And this is the catalog itself, the registry of open data. The data here was always open. What changed is that finding, licensing, and sampling, it stopped being a research project and became a sentence. That is the whole every catalog wants to be an MCP server idea in one example. Thanks for listening. I hope this was helpful. If so, you can reach out on LinkedIn directly or head to my blog at schristoph.online. Let's keep in touch. Take care.